in the heart of Memphis, where bass lines meet backdrops of neon blues and Instagram filters, catch more than just light, lived a couple everyone wanted to be. DeAndre Thompson, known in the music circles as Dre, had built a name for himself. A 32-year-old producer with platinum credits, quiet confidence, and a low-key charm that didn't beg for attention because his success spoke loud enough. He wasn't flashy, but he had the kind of respect in the industry that money couldn't buy. And then there was Destiny Jackson, 28, lifestyle influencer, hair always laid, captions always hitting, and a following that hung on her every post. Together, they were Memphis royalty, the kind of couple that showed up at charity galas and strip club VIPs in the same week and made it all look effortless. 3 years strong. From the outside, it looked like real love. Dre had even bought the ring, hidden in a sock drawer back home, tucked inside a black velvet box. A cushion-cut diamond that cost more than most cars. He had plans, serious ones. The kind that start with a proposal and end with a forever. Their inner circle called them goals. Friends joked about them having influencer babies. Even industry veterans saw them as the perfect fusion of modern love and black excellence. So when Dre surprised Destiny with a trip to the Bahamas, first-class tickets, 5-star resort, private ocean view suite, it wasn't just another vacation. This was supposed to be the moment. Atlantis Resort, sunset dinner, the proposal she'd been waiting for and already dreaming about on TikTok. Their phones captured everything, boomerangs at the airport, champagne toasts mid-flight, matching swimwear by the infinity pool. Destiny's followers called it paradise. She called it a dream. But dreams don't always wake up the way you expect. What they didn't post, what the filters didn't catch, was what started to shift in those first few days. Little things. A wrong look. A longer than usual silence. The way Dre started checking his phone, just a bit more often, but never smiling when he looked at it. There was something about this trip that didn't feel like a celebration. Not to Dre. Not anymore. And while Destiny was still posting Island Goddess content and taking slow-motion videos of the waves, Dre was starting to question whether he'd come to paradise or something else entirely. What was supposed to be the beginning of a forever might have already been over. He just didn't know it yet. Or maybe, deep down he did. Day 3 in paradise. Destiny had an early spa appointment, something she booked the night before. Hot stone massage. Deep tissue. The kind of treatment that takes hours. She kissed Dre on the cheek, told him to sleep in, and left the suite with her usual glow. Dre stayed in bed for a while, scrolling through his emails, answering a few work texts. Eventually, he got up to get dressed for the beach. Sunscreen was somewhere in her makeup bag. She always packed everything. Brushes, foundation, lipsticks in every shade. He knew she'd be mad if he rummaged through it, but he figured she wouldn't notice. What he found wasn't sunscreen. Under a small pile of setting powder and a silk headscarf was a second phone. One he'd never seen. No case. No lock screen. Just sitting there, silent, black, and waiting. He hesitated, then tapped the screen. It lit up immediately. Notifications flooded the screen. Names he didn't recognize. Numbers not saved. One name, though, kept coming up. Jay. Message after message. New ones. Old ones. Videos. Photos. Emojis that didn't leave much to the imagination. He opened the thread. It didn't start days ago. It didn't start weeks ago. The messages went back months. 8 of them, to be exact. The language was bold. Raw. Pictures of Destiny he had never seen, and he thought he'd seen them all. Photos in hotel rooms. Messages planning late-night meetups. Her voice in audio clips saying things like, "I miss your skin." And worse, there was one text that made his hand shake. "He's in the studio again. You know what that means." Then another. "I told you. Once this trip's over, I'm out." He scrolled further, past the videos, past the heart emojis, past the pet names, until he got to a message that stopped him cold. "He's just money to me, Jay. You're the one I actually love." The words hit harder than anything else on that screen. Harder than the pictures. Harder than the moans and the voice notes. That sentence played over in his mind like a sample loop he couldn't shut off. She called him her bank account. Dre sat on the edge of the bed, phone still in his hand, staring at the woman he thought he knew. The woman he almost proposed to. The woman who was currently getting her shoulders rubbed while his world cracked open in a hotel room, 4 floors above the sea. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was stunned. Still. The kind of stillness that feels like silence in your chest. His first instinct wasn't to confront her. It wasn't to leave. It was to understand why. Why all the years? The photos? The dinners with his mother? Why let him get on one knee in his head while she was whispering someone else's name in her texts? Dre placed the phone back where he found it. He zipped up her makeup bag. And then he sat there, listening to the waves through the sliding glass door. Not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. Waiting for her to return. And wondering who Jay really was. Dre didn't say a word when Destiny returned from the spa. She walked in glowing, humming a song she'd probably heard during her massage. She kissed him on the forehead, like nothing had changed. Maybe for her, nothing had. But for Dre, everything had. Later that night, when Destiny fell asleep with her back turned to him, he picked up the phone again. This time, he didn't just scroll through messages. He looked deeper. Downloads. Emails. Saved images. He found receipts. Hotel bookings paid for through Venmo. But the money didn't come from her account. It came from one of his. A business card he gave her years ago for emergencies. She had used it to book weekend trips, candlelight dinners, spa packages. The dates lined up. Times when she told him she was going to LA to shoot content. The same weekends he was stuck in the studio, mixing other people's dreams while his was falling apart. One receipt stood out. A private suite at a luxury hotel in Memphis. On the same night Dre hosted his label's artist showcase. She had told him she was sick that night. He remembered sending her soup and flowers while she was wrapped up in someone else's arms. Then came the voice notes. Short ones at first. Teasing. Flirty. Then longer ones. Intimate. She called Jay her piece. Her man. The only one who made her feel seen. And then, Dre's good for things, you know? Vacations. Bills. He takes care of stuff. That's what I need him for. But you're what I want. One voice note ended with laughter. Then this. I could empty his whole account, and he still wouldn't leave me. Dre sat in silence, replaying those words over and over until they didn't even sound real. But the last folder confirmed the part that broke him completely. Hidden in the phone's photo archive, screenshots. A birthday dinner photo. Dre recognized it. He was there. Destiny wore a red dress. He remembered taking that picture for her. In the corner of the screen, just behind her shoulder, was Jay. Smiling. Toasting. Hand on Dre's back. Jay wasn't just a stranger. He wasn't just some side piece. He was Dre's business partner. The man he brought into his studio, into his home, into his circle. The same man who once said, I got your back, bro. Always. Dre closed the phone and placed it exactly where he found it. The next morning, he made her breakfast. He smiled when she took a selfie of them on the balcony. He even helped her choose the caption. For the next 2 days, Dre played his role. He posted stories. He kissed her forehead in public. He tagged her in photos, replied to comments with heart emojis, and laughed at jokes he didn't hear. All while watching her. She would sneak off for walks on the beach to message Jay. Dre knew. He watched her reflection in the glass while she typed. He saw her smile at her phone in ways she never smiled at him anymore. She'd ask him how he was feeling. He'd say he was good. He wasn't. At night, he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, counting the lies. He heard her breathing next to him, soft and steady, like nothing was wrong. She talked in her sleep. Sometimes she said his name. Other times, she didn't. By the second day, Dre stopped trying to understand. He wasn't looking for explanations anymore. He was watching her the way a man watches the last seconds of something before it's gone. Not because he wanted to save it, but because he wanted to remember what it looked like before it changed forever. On the 5th evening, just before the sun dipped low enough to set the whole sky on fire, Dre asked Destiny to meet him at a private cabana near the edge of the resort. It was the kind of place honeymooners reserved, tucked away from everything else. She showed up smiling, dressed like she expected a surprise. Her phone was in hand, as usual. Dre was already seated, drink half finished, his expression calm. He didn't stand when she arrived. He didn't reach for her. He just nodded toward the seat across from him. She sat, laughing softly. "You're acting all serious." "What? You got another ring for me?" He looked at her for a long time before speaking. "Tell me about Jay." The smile cracked just for a second. Then it came back. "Jay who?" He didn't answer. He just reached into his pocket and placed the second phone on the table, screen up. Unlocked. She stared at it. Said nothing. Blinked twice. He tapped the screen. The messages lit up. Her face changed. She started with denial. "You went through my stuff." "That's not what it looks like. You don't even know the full story." He said nothing. Just watched her. Then came the shift. The shrug. The way her voice lost its edge and took on something colder. "What do you want me to say, Dre? That I'm sorry? You're always working. You're always distracted. Half the time I feel like I don't even exist to you." He still didn't speak. "Jay listens. Jay makes me feel seen. And yeah, maybe I used your card once or twice, but you wouldn't have noticed if you weren't so busy babysitting your artists all the time." That's when she stood up and walked to the edge of the cabana, back turned. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaken. She was almost relaxed. And then she said it. "After this trip, I was done anyway. I was going to leave you. Take what I needed. You've got all these valuables just lying around, thinking nobody would ever touch them. Documents, access codes, backup drives. You're too trusting." She turned back to face him. "You'd be shocked what I already have screenshots of." He looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. And maybe he didn't. Then she laughed. Short, sharp. "You really thought I wanted to marry you? You, of all people, should have known better. You're too smart to be this dumb." She walked back to the table and picked up the phone, held it in the air. "And you didn't even put a password on it. That's how much you trusted me. You really never suspected anything, did you?" She paused, leaned in just slightly. "You were easy, Dre. That's what made it fun." And then she smiled. It wasn't the smile he fell in love with. It wasn't even a smile meant for him. It was a smile that told him the woman he came here with never existed. Destiny sat back down like the conversation was over. Like nothing she'd said required a response. She crossed her legs, tapped her nail against the side of her drink, and smiled at him again. This time, the smile was wider. "You know those little dinner dates we'd have after your sessions?" She said casually. "Jay and I had better ones. Real meals. Real restaurants. Real laughs." She reached into her purse, pulled out her main phone, and started scrolling through photos. She turned the screen to him briefly. Pictures of her and Jay, smiling in dimly lit lounges, toasting in candlelight, her wearing a dress Dre had complimented her on weeks ago, thinking it was new. "You paid for all of them," she said. "Your card, your money. Jay didn't even have to ask." Dre didn't flinch. He didn't move. She leaned forward again. "You know what he calls you? The sponsor. That's your name in his phone. Sponsor. You've been footing the bill for months, and you didn't even notice." Then she laughed. Not loud, not forced. Just enough to let him know none of this was new to her. "You really are boring, Dre. Predictable. You do everything right. The house, the trips, the clothes. But none of it means anything when there's no thrill." Dre looked at her. He wasn't looking at her face anymore. He was looking at the tiny zipper on the side of her purse, the chipped corner of her nail polish, the chain around her neck that he bought in Atlanta last winter. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he said, "You used my cards to take him out." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. His hand slowly moved into his pocket. The ring box was still there. He'd carried it every day since they landed. He'd taken it to dinner, to the pool, even to bed. He opened it and looked at the diamond, glinting under the low light. The same account she had pulled from. The same money she spent on a hotel with Jay. That ring, meant for a proposal under the Bahamian sky, was paid for with money she stole. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just cheating. It was theft. And somehow, That detail hurt worse. Destiny looked at the ring in his hand and scoffed. You really were going to propose, weren't you? She leaned back, arms folded. That's wild. You're more gone than I thought. He didn't speak, just stared at the ring like it was some strange object he'd never seen before. She tilted her head and studied him for a moment, like she was deciding whether to keep going or let it end there. She kept going. You know what the difference is between you and Jay? She asked. He makes me feel alive. He knows what to do with me. You just play house. Jay satisfies me in ways you never could. That sentence stayed in the air longer than it should have. Long enough to change everything. Dre stood up. He walked past her, down the short path toward the water. He stopped at the edge of the sand where the tide reached. He bent down slowly and picked up a conch shell. Large, pink-lined, solid in the center. The kind tourists take home and place on shelves. He gripped it tight. She didn't move. When he turned around, he wasn't running. He wasn't yelling. He walked. She looked up at him when he got close. You really gonna cry over that ring? She said. Go ahead. Add that to your soft little playlist. The first hit landed just above her temple. Her body dropped hard to the side. There was a pause, a moment where he could have stopped. Walked away. Called for help. He didn't. The second hit crushed her jaw. The third snapped something in her skull that sounded final. Her hands reached up once, then fell. Her eyes opened wide, locked on the sky above them. She whispered something he couldn't make out. Maybe his name. Maybe someone else's. It didn't matter. He hit her again. And then he stopped. The conch shell dropped next to her body. Blood coated the edge. It soaked into the sand. It clung to his fingers. Dre looked down at her, her face barely recognizable. The mouth that once told him she loved him was frozen open mid-word. He took a step back. The ring box was still on the table behind him, open, waiting. And in that moment, everything came rushing in. The hotel room, the photos, the stolen money, the business partner, the lies, the laughter, the way she said his name like it was a joke. His hands were shaking. And then, just like that, he realized what he had done. She was gone, and nothing could undo it. Dre stood there for minutes, maybe longer. The sun was almost gone. The beach around them quiet. He looked at her body, then at his hands, then at the blood-spattered shell lying inches from her head. He knew no one had seen it happen. Not yet. He pulled off his shirt and tossed it into the ocean. Then he stepped carefully around her body and dragged it a few feet closer to the rocks. He adjusted the position of her arms, tilted her head, smeared some of the blood on the edge of the stones, made it look like a fall, a slip, a tragic accident by the water. He waited another 10 minutes before running toward the main path and calling for help. By the time resort staff arrived, Dre was pacing barefoot near the scene, his face pale, his voice frantic. He told them she slipped, said they were walking along the rocks, that she turned too fast, lost her balance. He said she hit her head and went quiet, said he didn't know what to do. The story didn't take long to fall apart. Security footage from a nearby camera showed Dre walking to the beach alone. No Destiny, no couple, just him. Another camera caught her entering the cabana 20 minutes after he got there and never coming out. The timestamps didn't match his version of events. Neither did the state of her body. Paramedics said the trauma wasn't consistent with a fall. The blows were too concentrated, too deliberate. Her injuries told a different story. Resort staff notified local police. Officers arrived before midnight. Dre was taken back to his suite for questioning. He repeated the same story, that they were walking, that she slipped, that he panicked. But the officers had already reviewed the footage. They arrested him on the spot. By morning, the news had spread beyond the island. Memphis music producer kills influencer girlfriend on Bahamas vacation. The headlines showed smiling photos of Destiny from her last Instagram post, sun-kissed, glowing, untouched by what would happen hours later. Clips from her stories were replayed on television, her voice overlaid with breaking news banners. Her family released a statement that afternoon. They said she had been trying to leave Dre, that she was afraid, that she felt controlled, that the trip was her chance to break away quietly. In Memphis, Dre's name was erased from club flyers. His beats were pulled from streaming playlists. Collaborators distanced themselves. Brand deals vanished overnight. The same public that once celebrated them now dissected every detail, every picture, every caption, searching for signs they missed. The trial began 3 months later in Nassau. The courtroom was small. Hot. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but reporters filled the benches. The prosecution came prepared. They had the footage, the forensics, the timeline, and the motive, laid out piece by piece, starting with the second phone. Jay was the state's first key witness. He wore a suit that didn't quite fit and answered every question like he'd rehearsed. Yes, they'd been seeing each other for months. Yes, he knew she was with Dre. No, he didn't think it was serious. He said destiny told him she was leaving Dre, that the relationship had run its course, that she was only staying for stability. He admitted to the dates, the gifts, the hotels. He claimed he never asked for money, never knew it came from Dre's accounts. When asked why he didn't step away once he realized how deep it was, he shrugged. I cared about her, he said. I thought she was serious about starting over. The defense leaned heavily on Dre's mental state. They called it a psychological break, a complete loss of control triggered by months of betrayal, emotional abuse, and financial manipulation. They brought in a therapist who had evaluated Dre after his arrest. She testified that Dre had been under extreme stress, compounded by professional pressure and personal deception. She said the murder was not planned, but emotional, reactive, the result of overwhelming humiliation and heartbreak. But the prosecution pushed back hard. They reminded the jury that Dre found the phone days before the murder, that he had time to leave, time to confront her in a safer way, time to do anything except what he did. They described how he stayed quiet, watched her, smiled for photos. They called it control, not confusion. They said the choice to kill wasn't in the moment. It was building, that every quiet breakfast and fake smile was one step closer to the final decision. In closing arguments, the prosecutor said, this wasn't a man who lost control. This was a man who decided to wait. And then he acted. The jury deliberated for 2 days. The verdict, guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Not murder, but not innocent either. The judge handed down a sentence of 15 years in a Bahamian prison. No chance of early release. Dre didn't speak as he was let out. His face didn't change. He didn't cry. He just walked. In the months that followed, DeAndre Thompson's name disappeared from the music charts. Collaborations were pulled. Clients stopped calling. His production credits vanished from new releases. Studios he'd helped build no longer mentioned him. He was replaced quietly, quickly, and completely. No statements were made. No apologies released. Just silence. Destiny's Instagram, once filled with curated moments and brand deals, became something else entirely. Her last post, captioned Island Love, was flooded with comments. Broken hearts. Prayers. Accusations. Then came the edits. Her page was turned into a memorial by her family. Her highlights renamed in memory. Old photos re-uploaded as tributes. But something else happened too. Jay stepped in. At first, it was subtle. A few story reposts. Mentions of her foundation. Then branded content. Affiliate links. Reels from her drafts, posted as if she were still here. He spoke on panels about healing from loss. He sold merch with her favorite quotes. People followed. Some said he was keeping her spirit alive. Others called it exploitation. But the numbers didn't lie. Her following grew. So did the income. The empire Destiny built, at least the part tied to clicks and likes, now belonged to him. Meanwhile, in a prison cell hundreds of miles away, Dre spent his days in silence. He started writing. Not music. Not beats. Letters. Pages and pages. Addressed to Destiny. Each one dated. Each one folded neatly and placed in a box under his bunk. He wrote about his dreams. About his regrets. About the moment he knew she was gone. Long before the night on the beach. He never sent them. No one ever read them. They just sat there, stacking up month after month. 15 years is a long time. And for Dre, It had only just begun. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you know someone who should hear this story, share it with them. Check out the videos at the end screen for more real stories that matter. Until next time.